Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Basically, I wanted to review a couple of books today because I realized that I unintentionally did sort of a Greek mythology themed week of reading. So I thought that these would go very well together and that I could do them in a review together and it would work out very well. And those two books are going to be The Sea of Monsters by Percy Jackson. The Sea of Monsters, the second book in the Percy Jackson series by Riordan, and Mythology by Edith Hamilton, which I have held up a couple of times now because it has fit into some beautiful book prompts. And I did read both of these within a few days of each other, so let's get right into the review. I am going to start with Mythology by Edith Hamilton, and so this book does contain primarily Greek mythology, although it does dive into Roman and Norse just a little bit with a few stories. So basically what this book offers is a decently detailed, but I think relatively simple collection of all of the major myths in one place, which is exactly what I wanted from it. So I thought that that was fantastic. I really liked the way that it was laid out because I thought that it made it really easy to approach and really easy to digest, because basically what it gives you is, first off, it starts with like bios of the gods, essentially. So it tells you who they are, it tells you their Greek names, their Roman names, and sort of what their personality is and what they're known for. And I loved that the book started with this because obviously the gods are like very pervasive throughout the myths themselves and the stories, and I thought it was very helpful to know right from the get-go like what information we're working with about these gods that we're about to see in the stories. So some of them I already knew about, but some of them I didn't, so it was really helpful for me to have that information going in. And so you start with the information about the gods and the Olympians, and then some of the like lesser gods, I suppose. And then from there, you move into myths and stories that are they're sort of collected into stories that fit together. So for example, you have some stories of love where you might have like the gods, Zeus in particular, like having a child on a mortal woman, or like adventures of like Cupid, or things like that. So you have stories of love and adventure, I think, was also in there. And then you have some of the stories of the heroes before the Trojan War have their own section. Then you have some stories about the Trojan War, which were obviously pared down. It's not like you have the entire epic poems in this book, but it's pared down to the important events, and it does tell you like what happened in the Iliad, what happened in the Odyssey. It just, you know, gives you kind of like a Cole's Notes version, but all the important events are there, and I think that that's a really good way to approach it, because if you're then interested, then you can go and read those epic poems, which I have already read the Iliad and the Odyssey, so I was familiar with those tales, but I haven't read the Aeneid, and I wasn't familiar with that, so it's kind of like incentive to go and read the full version of the epic poetry. Then you kind of like finish off with some of the great houses of mythology, so like the story of Oedipus's house, or the house of Atreus, or houses in Athens and things like that. And then you have some of the lesser myths, and then the book closes out with some Norse mythology, which I actually thought was very interesting because I know very little about Norse mythology other than like the Thor movies, which it's not exactly the best source of information, even if it's entertaining. So I liked that that was included in there, and there were some stories about the founding of Rome as well, because I did mention that they get a little bit into Roman mythology. But overall, I loved what this book brought to me, and even like having the knowledge in my head that a lot of pop culture and a lot of other stories are inspired by Greek mythology, I was shocked at how many connections I drew, and I was just impressed by how much Greek mythology has given us in terms of storytelling. So I loved that aspect. And I was really satisfied with the book. I gave it 4 stars, I think, because I just thought that like it accomplished what it set out to do perfectly. It had the perfect balance of the stories for me versus their lengths. And it gave me the opportunity where if I'm interested in any of the things I read in that book, then I can go look into them further. So I was very happy with it. So the second of the 2 books in this review is The Sea of Monsters. And this is obviously like a middle grade story, so any of the stuff that we get in here is kind of going to be like imagined and geared towards like young teens, and like even younger than that. But the Percy Jackson books are just really fun. So I gave this, I think, 3.5 stars on Goodreads. And that's just because, like, when I pick up one of those books, I can basically read it in one sitting. It's so fast-paced, it's so much fun, and it's just like a light, fluffy read that I can really enjoy. It doesn't require that much thought from me, but it still has enough appeal. And I don't know how people feel about spoilers for the Percy Jackson books since they've been out for so long, but I won't get into anything specific. But I do know that people say that they're formulaic, which like I think is true. Like, you have the format of a quest where you interact with like different obstacles along the way and like you overcome one. It's not quite like a monster of the week setup, but you encounter one thing and you overcome it, and then you know that you're going to encounter another thing that you're going to have to overcome, so on and so forth until you complete the quest. But after reading the first book last fall, and then leaving enough space between them that I picked this up now, I thought that the actual like mythological beings and mythological figures that they encountered were different enough in this book than they were in the first book. And the pacing was so fast, it doesn't really give you time to like stop and think about it. I really liked what Percy and his friends went through in this book. I thought it was really like fun and entertaining. I don't know how many times I'm going to use the word fun, but I really liked the particular myths that they encountered in the Sea of Monsters, like the sirens and Scylla and Circe. And so I was interested, and I think it also added to my experience that I had just read about some of these stories in their like somewhat original form in Mythology, and then I kind of got to see them in like this reimagined, fun, like kids version of them in Percy Jackson. And the half-bloods being like the sons and daughters of the gods and interacting with their parents, like, is a concept that I love. Like, the gods having to deal with modern children is very funny to me. So overall, like, I'm not really going to critically analyze the Percy Jackson books just because I don't think that that's what I'm reading them for. Like, I just had a good time, and I thought that it was a really nice, like, book to just slip in between bigger books and just kind of, like, have a good time with it, which I did. So overall, I may have overloaded my brain a little bit with Greek mythology for 1 week, but I really liked both of the books that I read, and hopefully if you were thinking about picking up Mythology, this can give you a little bit more insight into it. I think a lot of people know what Percy Jackson is already, so you don't really need me to tell you about that, but I am really looking forward to picking up the next book in the Percy Jackson series as well, but I might give myself a buffer period just because, like I said, I think that I enjoyed it more because I wasn't coming straight off of the first book. So we'll see when I get to that. But yeah, I was very happy with both of these. This was my Greek week, and I hope that you enjoyed these reviews. Please like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you would like to see more content from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!